I think we should start over. Get back in the mix.
You do. Okay. My glass is half gone because Keith's lights failed, so we're starting this episode again.
I plugged them back in. I'll plug them in forever now.
Ooh, it's Spider-Man No Way Home.
Can we let's take our job seriously.
It's a big deal. This is a big movie. We don't have to tell the folks about it. They know.
They know.
You guys understand. It's the biggest movie. It's the biggest movie. It's the biggest Marvel film in a while. It's the biggest film. It's the most highly anticipated film of the year. It is the thing. It is like breaking box office records. It's doing amazing in the middle of Omicron or Omicron or fucking Decathlon,
someone's
Decepticon, whatever it is. It's just ravishing the world. Spider-Man fans undeterred. This movie is a huge success, even if there wasn't a pandemic. So we don't have to tell you guys about it. Keith, you got on Instagram. You shared your A- thoughts. So why don't you tell us? Why don't we start there? What'd you just think, Keith?
We'll start there. I think the movie is good. Overall, I enjoyed it, and I think that's where I start these conversations. Like, did you generally enjoy it? Because that's where these movies are rooted in. I think for fans to enjoy them, and I think this film delivers on what fans would expect, would want to see from this film. If you're a Marvel fan, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you're a fan of the MCU, that whole thing, this film gives you what you were hoping this film would do, and it's an enjoyable ride. Now, I have some nitpicks. I have some things I want to discuss, because I don't think the movie is flawless by any means. But trying to, taking a step back, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the theater-going experience. I enjoyed watching it on a big screen. Overall, I enjoyed it. So we can start there. I do not know what you're gonna say, and I feel like it could go a million different ways, and my stomach is in knots. So just tell me.
If you had to guess.
This is great. If I had to guess, put in the comments what you would guess too at this moment. Did you ever like this film or hate this film? I'm gonna go with, because I think you're a Grinch. I think you're gonna go with you seriously dislike it.
You think I seriously dislike it?
I think you seriously dislike it. And I don't know why, I'm just guessing.
Well, it's a fair default for most new films today. Because I'm such a hipster. No, I liked it a lot. I mostly, I don't want to say I loved it. I mean, I loved watching it. Like, it was a great time. It was much, much better than I expected. I mean, through the roof better. As we discussed, we had a brief video we put together for Instagram that we shot a few weeks ago talking about this just based on the trailers.
What do you got?
I think that movie is going to be bad. My hopes were very low. I was expecting it to be bad. I thought that I'm beefing with the trailer editors, who I'm sure had a hard job because they had to edit around showing any footage from the second half of this film. But those trailers are bad. Those are not well-made trailers, and a lot of the complaints I have of the content in those trailers that weren't the case in the actual film. The line,
"Please, Scooby-Doo this crap,"
is a horrible line. "Scooby-Doo this shit" is somehow a
little bit
substantially better line. It's better enough that it didn't jump out to me as being awful.
Yeah. And that wasn't the tone of the film. Like the trailer made it feel like that was the tone of the whole film.
Yes.
And it's not. It's that line.
Yes.
It just happens to be that line.
The film was really good. The film is super enjoyable, super fun. There are so many good things to say about it. As you say, there are some complaints. I have probably more than the average viewer, because I know my core fan base. I gotta give them what they want. No, it's totally fun.
They come for the heat.
You mentioned the theater going experience. It was like, it felt more like a movie used to, that like a big movie used to. There were moments where I had genuine chills, more than one. Moments of very genuine emotion. Where if I wasn't sitting there with Monique, I probably would have cried like hard. You know? And I was like keeping my shit. Like, okay, I don't care.
I'm a man.
I don't care. It's a kid's movie. It's a kid's movie. Very, very real stuff. So I liked it. I liked it a lot.
So what do you want to get into first? What detail do you want to discuss first? Because there's plenty of praise, but I think people come for the heat.
No, for sure. Well, let's just give some general praise.
Okay.
I thought I was very impressed. A place I often start with the performances, which is not unheard of for a Marvel film, but like very good, very, very good.
You're just saying all across the board, just everybody?
I think almost across the board. I have one or two minor exceptions, but I thought most notably, I thought it was great that Zendaya had more to do, and delivered. I have been critical of that young woman's acting talents on this very show.
You sure
more
have.
than once. This to me is easily the best performance I've seen her give in a film, and I really liked her. I thought she did a really, really good job, and I was very impressed. I think Tom Holland is always good, and he's super genuine, super earnest. And then I think the two, what I would call the two primary villains, obviously Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, and Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina. I mean, those guys could not be more committed to their roles, which goes such a long way in a film like this that's so fantastical and over the top and not realistic, that like everybody's just doing great work. Marissa Tomei, great work. I want to talk about that scene. Like it's just really high level stuff that elevates the material. And then even if the material isn't always super strong or like super realistic, the fact that they're so personable and believable and real, like that will draw you in as an audience, as a viewer, every time.
I think I agree. Generally, everyone really does a nice job there. From those main characters, I think everybody really holds their own. But the engine that makes this film go, to me, is Willem Dafoe, and he doesn't even show up until later in the film. But once he's there, I think everything is elevated because of him and his performance. I thought he was outstanding. He was committed, as you said, but not over the top in a way like it took me out of it. I really thought he hit the nail on the head with his like intensity and with his commitment to the piece, to the bit, to the character. And because of how sincere I thought his performance was, it made everything else off of it seem that much more purposeful. But to me, it really started with him. And that his turn, I mean, you knew it was coming. It's not, again, that's not a surprise. And that might be a big heap of praise that I have for this thing. Even though I knew 90% of what was gonna happen in this film going into it, it still did a really good job of holding me. And in performances, specifically, I thought were all big part of that. They were really great. But I thought everything became bigger and stronger and more purposeful and had more weight because your main villain, and I would put him as the main villain in this.
For sure, completely.
Because of the gravity that he instilled in the film.
Yeah. His portrayal of that character was amazing in the old one, and he just picked her up right where he left off.
I think the film does a good job of balancing a lot of stories within this one film. Because
it really does.
That's something, if you want to talk about praise, it tells this individual film story. It tells the final tale to this 3-part series of this Spider-Man. It fills you in and gives you a lot more context into those other Spider-Man movies. And it also continues to paint a bigger picture of the MCU. It balances a fucking ton. And in a way, I thought Marvel didn't have the ability to do anymore just based on the last 3 films that came out, which I thought were dog shit. Comparatively, for that reason, I've criticized the MCU and Kevin Feige on this show based on just that very fact, that they lost sight of what makes this thing the biggest entity in all of entertainment. Is that connectivity, staying focused on these films, but telling a bigger story within the same film. And this film delivers it, so I know they can do it. They can do it. I don't know why you don't do it every time out.
Well, probably easier said than done, but...
No.
I don't want to wait any longer. I just want to say, Andrew Garfield is by far the best part of this film.
Wow.
Everything that he does is basically flawless. Like, I think he's a very good actor, and so like I like him.
Yeah.
But I'm not like some fucking crazed fan. I was
Sounds like you are.
blown away by his performance, by his energy, by his heart, by all of it.
Yeah.
Like, I loved all of that stuff, all of their interactions. I could talk about that for literal hours.
Yeah.
And I want to. We're going to. So settle.
So Settle In is 9 hours long, this episode.
but just in general, I just want to say, Andrew Garfield, fucking props. Like, great job, hilarious, loved it. Carried the film from the moment he arrives. I really do believe that. I think the movie kind of, I don't want to say lags, but like, you know, by the time he comes in, what is it, the end of the second act maybe? And that's in this film is like an hour 45 in, like it's a long movie.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, like I'm ready. I'm ready. And it's just like shot in the arm. And he's a great time.
He was great. I couldn't agree more. I think energy is the key word for him. He had a real great energy and a different energy. And this leads me to my other point, to a new point, I should say, not my other point. A new point is Tobey Maguire. What did you think of Tobey Maguire? Because I have some thoughts, but I don't even know, like maybe it was on purpose. But before I talk, what did you think of Tobey Maguire in comparison to the other two Spider-Man?
I thought he did good too. I liked seeing him because it's just straight fucking like nostalgia heroin.
Yeah.
Like,
I love seeing him. Yeah. That's not but in terms of his performance, anything stick out to you, or you just think it was good in general?
I think it was very good. I think it was very solid. He didn't blow me away, but I really liked that the film, like, it seemed consciously was giving both of those guys moments to be very dramatic and then moments to be very funny and to be like their best versions of themselves within these different like mini genres in the film. And I think there was a lot of really self-aware stuff to both Garfield and Tobey, but not even just to their films, like to their own lives. Like, I think there was a lot of like, for Tobey being this kind, like the fact that he shows up in street clothes and he's just kind of like this older, like dad-looking dude. And then I read a lot about Tobey Maguire and how he's kind of like, kind of mutually stepped away from Hollywood, but kind of people think he's a dick. So he's kind of like doing his own thing and he's raising his family and he's been kind of separate. He hasn't been in a movie for 7 years. Like, all of that energy was there in his appearance in this, where he looks a little tired and he's, you know, the youth pastor line, dressed as a youth pastor, which is like the funniest line of the film, is really
great.
funny.
Yeah.
I loved all that stuff. I felt like the film was really respectful of them as characters and as actors, as people. And I thought that was really special.
Yeah. I think all of that is really well said, and I hate to say that, but all of that, I do. I think all of that was really, really well said. The thing that so maybe the answer to my thought is when I saw Tobey Maguire, he felt a little standoffish. He felt a little, he didn't seem very charismatic. And maybe in comparison to these other two Spider-Men who I thought are, as Andrew Garfield especially, but even Tom Holland has a real presence, I think. I think he's a great Spider-Man in general. And he wasn't having too much fun at the point where they meet everybody. So, but Tobey Maguire did, like, almost felt he felt like I felt like he felt he was uncomfortable. And I don't know if that was a conscious choice, like an acting thing, a directing thing, or I just didn't like his performance. I don't know.
I think that's just Tobey Maguire.
Maybe it is. I think
that's his acting
maybe it's a combination
style.
of all of it. I don't know, but I definitely felt it where I was thinking to myself, I was like, does he not want to do this? Like, is he, like, he just felt reserved and it didn't seem very charismatic. He didn't seem to have like a big personality. It was very understated. And maybe that was the point. I thought the way they introduced the first Spider-Man was awesome. And you kind of felt it coming. but that anticipation as Spider-Man's running, I'm like, he's bigger than Tom Holland. Like he's
exactly. I was like, oh shit! I like elbow.
It's happening, and the whole theater started. You could feel the pulse of the theater rise, and I thought that was awesome. And then have that whole moment, prove it, all that shit. Awesome, loved it. And then they just do it again. And my wife goes, oh, here comes Tobey Maguire. And she was excited. I go, no, they wouldn't just do the same thing again. And they just did. And I was sad because I felt like Tobey deserved a better entrance because he's the first one. He's the guy, I think he's the guy really that everybody wanted to see more so than Andrew Garfield. And I think he came in perfectly, Garfield did. But I feel like it was a missed opportunity to have them meet, have them talk, have that moment like we don't believe this is happening, and then let another story beat happen and give a different entrance, a bigger entrance for Tobey Maguire. It felt like there could have been more gravity to that moment, like, oh my God, or maybe give me a beat where I think it might not happen.
Yeah.
And then pay it off rather than just be like, oh, same thing, here he is, he's here too.
Well, just for argument's sake, because I like to argue with you, not because I necessarily believe in either of these arguments, I would just say, one, that you're talking about just inherently extending the film, which is already 2.5 hours if you put that off by a little bit and you have to introduce a new reason why Tobey Maguire has to show up separately. But two, imagine you're making this film and you're not total fucking fuck-ups that can't contain leaks, which is an issue that we can talk about right now, and you as the viewing audience had no idea that either of these guys might even be close to this production. Like that this was a complete surprise, then it wouldn't matter. Then that moment doesn't matter. So if you look at it from that lens, imagine that you had zero idea that either of these guys would be here, and all of a sudden Andrew Garfield's there, you're like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing ever. And they do it again, and then Tobey Maguire? How did you get Tobey Maguire? He hasn't been in a movie in 7 years. Like you'd be losing your mind.
Yeah, sure, but that's not the world we live in. I live in reality. You live in a fantasy.
But when they made the film, when they shot the film, you're not going to write.
You don't think they know?
Spoilers and
you don't
leaks.
think they know how this works at this point? Like they'll never know.
They keep some stuff. They kept Endgame secret. We didn't know what happened in Endgame. Why couldn't they keep this secret? This is a part I'd like to touch on. Is like, how did the world know? How did I see fucking thumbnail screen grabs of Matt Murdock as Daredevil and all three Spider-Man together like 9 months ago?
Oh, I didn't see Daredevil. I didn't see Daredevil, which I thought was cool. It was an exciting moment.
Yeah, but like you can't keep that a secret? Like who's fucking this up? Like, first of all, fuck you, because I hate that stuff. Like,
I hate it too.
Value.
I hate it too.
You're not providing any value to the world. You're making the world worse. Like, imagine for as much fun as this film was, and as big as those moments were that Garfield shows up and all that. Like, imagine not having any idea, and then think to yourself that that's the way it was for the first 100 years of cinema. I'm like spitting profusely.
Teenagers.
I'm so fired up. Like that's the way it's always been. Is like there has to be a way. There has to be a way if you're the biggest and most powerful studio with the biggest and most powerful IP. There has to be a way.
But we live in a world. This is not what this episode is about. So I don't want to get too much into it.
This is a huge part of this film.
But we live in a world where people chase clout. And if I'm the people think for whatever fucking reason that if I'm the reason that leaks Spider-Man, that I'm gonna get some sort of fame off that. Like I'm breaking ground. I'm the first person.
They should be executed.
They should be
executed in the street.
They should be banned. They should be banned from Instagram or Twitter or whatever. They should not murdered. But they should, like, I couldn't agree more. These people should not be allowed to exist in the internet. Because of it, there should be penalties, harsh penalties for ruining it for everybody. Because I agree, I wish I didn't know 85% of this movie going in, because it would have been awesome. I can't imagine how amazing that would have been. But it's just the world that we live in.
If you're Kevin Feige, honestly, this is an honest question. Don't you think that you could? I know this movie is incredibly hard, right? Because it's not just which I sort of assumed, it's not just Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showing up for 5 or 10 minutes for a fun cameo. They are a huge part of the film.
Oh yeah,
They are main characters, driving the story forward and helping it conclude. So that is I give it some benefit of the doubt for like, it's got to be hard to contain that if a third of your film revolves around this huge secret that these two guys are in this.
Yeah.
But if you're Kevin Feige, don't you think you might be able to like craft a crew of, look, we're going skeleton crew for these final big shoots, and it's just gonna be me and the 19 people that I trust more than anybody in the world, and we're not having the fucking crafty guy in here, and we're not having the third assistant grip. Like, we're not having these randos in here that might be tempted to like tell their friend or tell their girlfriend or whatever. Like, there has to be a way to do that. But there has to.
There's too much access to the world these days, and exactly what you just said, someone's gonna tell someone.
Annoying, eating fucking rat.
I'm gonna tell my girlfriend's gonna tell her friend's gonna tell her boyfriend, and that's it. Like that's all it takes. And then it spreads like wildfire because we have access to every single thing all the time, always. So it's impossible. It's impossible. And I wish it wasn't. I
Fucking hate the internet. I hate the internet. And fuck you if you leak this film, if you leak those fucking pictures.
Yeah, you ruin everyone's time. You ruin everything.
Yeah. And the thing that bothers me, I'll drop it after this, but like it bothers me that I feel like culture today, and culture is driven by young people, so I'm not trying to pick on the youth, but like youth today, like this is a part of their movie-going experience. Like they almost expect this, and it doesn't bother them. So then this really is rewarded. And I just want to say to the kids, like it doesn't have to be like this, and it would be so much better if you didn't know, if you had no idea. Be so much better. So stop clicking on the shit. Stop, like, executions, public executions. It's reasonable.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, 3 Spider-Men, hilarious,
awesome.
The youth pastor line is top level comedy. The funniest moment of the film, I thought, the funniest delivery was in the fights at the end. I mean, I loved all that shit. I could watch hours of the 3 of those guys interacting, or even just Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, like with the back pain stuff. Like, the back hurts. It's like, I got a thing like that. He's like, oh, you do you? Like, just like those little small talk things.
It was great.
And then the funniest delivery is when they're arguing about like their plan. And they get a little confused about who's Peter 2 and who's Peter 3. And he's like, okay, Peter 1, okay. And then to Tobey Maguire, Peter 2. And then they like point at Andrew Garfield, he goes, Peter 3, or like whatever. His like, it's such a small moment, but the way he does it, like, I'm telling you, I fell out of my chair. Like, it was so brilliant. It was so much fun. So much fun.
That whole, so much fun encapsulates their dynamic, especially at that. Once they get to the Statue of Liberty, it's a lot. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, comic book heroine. Like I said, nostalgia heroine.
Yeah.
That's what comic book movies should be. Just like, it's so much fun that it doesn't matter how like stupid it is or stupid it might be.
Yeah.
Like, it's just sign me up. Put it into my veins and let's have fun.
No, this film puts its fans first, and it rewards them with all of that sweet, sweet black tar heroin that you would want as a comic book movie fan.
All right, let's fucking shred this film. Let's put on our Martin Scorsese t-shirts, and as filmmakers ourselves, we know more about these things than everybody else.
1,000%. They should have let me direct it, or no, they should have let me write it.
I apologize to the writers because I insulted the writers in our little Instagram video, but they did a great job. They did a really great job.
They did.
The trailer was bad. Fire the trailer editors. Hire me and Keith. We'll start there. We'll edit trailers.
We'll work our way up. We'll work our way up.
SDs on our way to the top.
So many Ds. Here's my biggest beef with the film. I think some of the major plot points in the film are just underdeveloped. And for me, it may sound nitpicky. It may sound like, it's a good time, just let it go. But I don't want to.
No, that's not why we're here.
I'm judging the film to be good or bad. And if these things are not done, I think it is worse because of it. So I can't just be like, no, I turned my brain off. Yes, it's good, I enjoyed it. But when I dig into it, when I take it one step further, the whole make a wish and forget who you are Spider-Man thing, I just think is really underdeveloped because it doesn't make a ton of sense if you like think about it for any amount of time. And I just feel like they just should have spent a little bit more time explaining the mechanics of how this may work. Or maybe not even explaining, but like demonstrating or getting the point across. You can shake your head all you want, but it doesn't make sense at the end of the film. It just doesn't make sense why all of a sudden they could just be like, oh, no, we can fix all of this. Just like everyone just forgets you. And that just fixes it like out of nowhere. And then how does it work now? Like who? No one knows who you are. Like why doesn't like it just frustrated me very much because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And I want it to add up.
You're wrong because it's not that it doesn't make sense because it's underdeveloped. It doesn't make sense because it's stupid.
Okay.
That's the difference. That's my only quarrel with what you said, and that is the biggest flaw of this film. If you wanna be critical, is that that whole premise is very flawed logically, and I don't think there is any level of explanation. I think they did the right thing in the sense of like, let's not really get into it. It's sort of like time travel in Endgame.
Think about it. If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future.
Do you know how I feel about Endgame? It's bullshit.
No, I know, but comic book logic, it's magic and it's wizards. Like there's never gonna be like a satisfactory resolution in that sense.
I disagree. I feel like you can give enough. You can give enough to why wouldn't his friends recognize him when he goes back to see him? They just don't know he's Spider-Man.
That's one of my big questions.
Like they don't know he's Spider-Man. Stupid. Not that he's Peter Parker.
No, it doesn't make any sense. That's one of my biggest complaints that I have. Like, how does that work? When he's with Happy at May's grave at the end. Wait, so Happy remembers May and has a full plethora of memories of her, but has no memories of her nephew who lived with her. So what are those blank spots? What does Zendaya remember about her trip to Europe? Does she just remember it as being this fun, carefree fucking vacation? Yeah. Oh, but Spider-Man was there. So does she remember interacting with Spider-Man? But are there just fucking blank spots in her brain where Peter was? Like it doesn't make sense. So it's stupid.
It's so convoluted. It takes any heart. A lot of heart away from those moments when it just, and especially when it's when it's tied to the climax of the film. And then another thing that pisses me off is that if this could just as easily have been taken care of, the answer was in front of the whole time. So why don't they just do it?
The entire world's about to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
You know what I'm saying? It was the same thing. It was always
I thought that too.
So why not just do that? Then why not just do that in the beginning?
This whole time you could have just done that again.
You could have just done that, and then it would have we wouldn't have to go through any of this.
Yeah.
It needs to be harder
here's something
than
else
that.
I'll say is at the end there where Doctor Strange is holding the fucking fabric of reality together. He has enough concentration in that moment to properly cast the spell. But when he's just in his fucking dungeon beneath the ground, he stresses out because there's a kid talking to him. Wait a minute. Peter, stop talking. This is stressful. But he's holding everything together. He's keeping the gates closed. And then he's nailed it. Like that's stupid.
What also bothers me, and then he goes, "Go ahead, say your goodbyes." You have several universes on top of you, and then I'll give you 3 more minutes. It's fine. I got this.
Yeah,
but
no problem. No problem.
That sort of stuff. I think they don't explain it on purpose because maybe you're right. Maybe they just say, well, we can't explain it, so let's not explain it. Let's just not explain it and just fuck it. But that bothers me. That bothers me. I have 2 other things. One I think is pretty big, and the other one is small, but it annoyed me. The bigger thing.
I bet I know what they are.
What do you got?
The other big one is Peter's need to save these 6 villains.
It is not.
Oh, well, that's the correct answer.
It is not. I can go along with that only because it felt like that was a May thing, not a him thing, that she instilled this in him.
They did a good job at trying to establish that, and that's the reason. But at the core, that's fucking stupid. And just me personally, I have a problem, push the button. Like, half of these guys are dead, and they come from another world, and they're supervillains, and their very presence here threatens the existence of everyone in the universe because of this, what it means, the ramifications of this portal you've opened. Like, I get that you want to make your aunt proud who saves homeless people, but, send those fucking people back. Like, that's silly to me.
It's another thing that while you're there, now there's so many things I hate about this film.
This movie's awful.
Well, the fact that they have a button that ends the film too, throughout the whole film. Your main character has a button that just says credits, and he just doesn't push it.
And consequence-free. Consequence-free.
Yeah.
All that happens is everything just goes back to the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Push that fucking button.
Yeah. It just. There was a lot of things in this film. Maybe this is the best way to surmise it. There's a lot of things in this film that happen because they just want it to happen. That they just want the film to continue to move forward. They want emotional moments. They just want it, so they just make it happen.
Let me take a guess at your smaller quibble.
Okay.
Because this is the first correct answer. I have a couple other little quibbles, but...
Quibble's a good word.
Ned all of a sudden being fucking powerful.
1000%. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And it just is so dumb. It takes away from Doctor Strange. It makes him look worse, in my opinion. If this moron
I'm looking at porn.
can just figure this out. He can just do this.
He's a wizard.
Because his grandmother said he was magic. He's not a super. Doctor Strange went through.
He's gonna be though.
I swear to God, that it made me angry.
He's gonna be.
I don't want him to be.
I don't either.
I don't want him to be. I think it's bad. I think it's
that was such a
actively
convenient
bad.
thing. I understand that you have to do these certain things. In one very small way, I can respect that. Look, we're the writers. We have to get Doctor Strange out of this film because he can just fix it because he's powerful and competent. So we find a way to lock him away. Oh, but we also need portals. So how are we going to get portals? Okay, well, let's have them steal Doctor Strange's ring and Ned all of a sudden just gets lucky. Sure, there's a side of me that goes, I understand why you had to do that.
One time. I'll give you one time. If the time that he was like, I miss Spider-Man or whatever. It's like,
yeah.
And then it just worked. I'll give you one time. But then he's just doing it for the rest of the movie?
Yeah.
I can't accept that.
No, and that's the thing, is he's gonna be a thing now. He's gonna be a thing.
I don't like it.
No, it's stupid.
It took Doctor Strange years of his life to figure this out, and he can do it like this. He can do it in an hour.
Yeah. Well, he has magic in his heritage, Keith.
I can't accept it. It was dumb. If everyone's a superhero, then nobody's a superhero. You need normal people.
Yeah.
And they need to outweigh the superheroes. There need to be more normal people than superheroes for any of this to matter. Stop it.
I want to give a lot of credit to Marvel for their death scenes, which don't happen often enough because more people need to die in these movies to make them even more powerful. But I thought Aunt May dying, I thought Marissa Tomei dying, that scene was so, and I as I watched it, I felt them fucking manipulating me, pandering to me. They know what they're doing, but I have a lot of respect for that. Because there's a way to do those scenes to make them really impactful, and it starts with great actors, and both Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland do an amazing job, but it's just it was very reminiscent to me of probably the saddest moment in the MCU, which is when Tom Holland fucking dusts in Tony Stark's arms. And the reason that's so powerful is because both those performers are great, and also because as he dies, he says, "I'm sorry." And I'll start crying right now because the notion of someone dying and trying to like apologize to you or to the survivor or like appease them or make them feel better, try to soothe them, that is just like the most human, sad shit ever. And that's what happens here in a different way, where Marissa Tomei just keeps saying like, "Let me catch my breath. Just let me catch my breath and everything's gonna be okay. Just let me catch my breath." Like she's trying to soothe her, you know, ward, her relative, her nephew. And like, everything's fine, just let me catch my breath. She doesn't want to admit it. I knew she was dead as soon as that fucking thing hit her.
Well, that's what I said, because she in my head, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna kill her? Like that was, but then it was a great turn because then she got up and I was like, Marvel, you did it again. Like no one ever dies.
Yeah.
And then when she stumbled and then they drew it out from that moment and it was great. It turned out, that whole scene, like collectively, that whole scene was awesome in an emotional way.
Yeah. Every time she said, "Let me just catch my breath," it was like another fucking stab to the heart.
Yeah.
It did have one cutaway that I didn't like. It's like, as she collapses and he goes to like catch her, it cut to the fucking cops getting out of the truck for just like 8 seconds. And then comes back to them, he's like cradling her. And I was a little mad at that. Like I was like, I'm about to erupt in tears and just melt into this chair. And then it cuts away. And that was like a weird, not a lot that I would criticize from a directorial standpoint here, but that moment, just keep me there. I want to be forced. And maybe it did. Maybe the studio or somebody's like, you got to release a little of this fucking emotion. Like this is sad. So don't like make these people so depressed that they can't watch the rest of the film. But I wanted that. I wanted to be in that moment where I just like, don't let me leave him watching her die. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was very very good.
It was great. I'm not glad she died, but I'm glad she died. I'm glad they stuck to their guns. You know, it's hard for them to do that sort of stuff. But that segues into another beef that I have, and maybe it's more me, but I think Tobey Maguire should have died.
Well, I don't. I disagree, but I think that stabbing of him was cheap. That was a cheap trick. Like, when they did that, it was like, okay, well then he needs to die.
Yeah, because
like,
he got him.
That's why you do this. To just do it for a shock value, and then, everything's fine. You're in big pain, aren't
just
you?
to be like, I'm fine. That bothered me a lot. That bothered me a lot. Like he needs to be like grazed or clubbed over the head or something that's like a little bit less. Oh, you're immediately going to die.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to do that, he should have died.
It was cheap.
And I would have been fine with that.
I thought for those few moments that I thought he was going to die, because it was such like a clear moment that he was stabbed so thoroughly, I thought, wow, this is really powerful of them because they're closing that chapter.
I thought it was
Garfield's
perfect.
not going to die because there's already rumors that Garfield might come back in some type of ways, in some other multiverse ways, or you know, crazy. Maybe they'll even continue his saga and his universe. Like that's possible. So that made me sad. I didn't know how I felt when the stab happened, but as I started to be like, they're going to kill him.
I thought it was great.
That could be kind of beautiful if they do this right.
I thought it was great. I really thought it was a great moment. And emblematic, too. Like, it just, I thought it was a perfect bow. I really did. I thought it was a nice bow moment for him to die in the way that he was dying.
Yeah.
And then they made a joke of it.
Yeah, it's literally like never.
And they just made a joke of it.
Never a problem after that.
No. And he was like, I'm cool.
That was a big miss.
So I was disappointed.
I think that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sure there's a lot of other things I'm forgetting, but I think we covered most of the things. I really am hung up on, I do think those two major flaws that we mentioned about, Peter's unwillingness to send these people back to their universes and the whatever nature of the magic that, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like that, yeah, that's all silly stuff. But I really do, I'm curious. I'm not even trying to be like Duncan scoring points, smartass. Like, someone please explain to me how this memory thing works. Like,
it doesn't make sense.
If you don't think about it too much, it's fine. Like, okay, yeah, great. they forgot him, and now he's going about his life, and he has his normal, cheap, homemade suit now, and he's just a poor guy, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which I also like, because that was a little, as a quick aside, something, I love Spider-Man in all these Marvel films and the MCU films, but I didn't like that he'd basically become the new Iron Man, where it's like his suit is fucking magic, and he's just invincible, and like that's not what Spider-Man is to me. Like he's just some poor kid that's trying to help people out and he's wearing pajamas. Like that's cool. So I'm happy to see that come back. But yeah, the memory thing just doesn't. I'd like to understand it. If it's understandable and it's not as stupid as you and I think it is.
No, it
please
is.
Someone tell me.
It is. It 100%. It 100% is. It just people don't want to think about it. Anyone who likes it just doesn't want to think about it. They just want to be like, that's a great, because it does get to the emotion, like the end scene of, you know, him looking at Zendaya and noticing the cut on her eyes and then saying, oh, I've already killed my aunt because of this. Like how much more blood needs to be shed, like feeling that weight and that responsibility is great. That moment is what it needs to be.
Yeah.
But for that to mean anything to me, I need to know how we got there. And the film, anyone who likes that moment just goes, well, I just like that moment. I don't care. I don't care how we got there. I need to know how I need to know how we get there. And the film doesn't show me or explain to me.
Really wanted Ned and Zendaya to start kissing at the end.
There was a guy behind me who lost his fucking mind when he comes in, because he was like, no. He was.
No, because it was about to happen. That was the setup.
Everybody, like the crowd was getting livid, and I wanted him, because you know what I thought was going to happen?
Just start fucking on the donut counter.
Like,
oh,
I love those
Ned.
donuts. Do you, Ned?
He's making portals and shit.
I'm a part of that ass, girl.
I'm a fucking wizard.
No, I thought that was going to be the setup to Ned's heel turn in a future movie, because he had that line in the middle of the movie or towards the end or beginning of the third act, where he was like, I won't ever turn on you, and you won't have to kill me, or I won't ever try and kill you. Like, why would you
going
even
to do that? That's going to happen.
Yeah, so why not? Why make that joke if it was like, I thought they were going to begin to pay that off of there's going to be this love triangle that is going to be the downfall of their relationship.
I think this might be the nerdiest episode we've ever done, because I don't think we've referenced a single film that's like outside of the MCU. We haven't we haven't given any context. This is just us ranting about this film and this story.
Yeah. We're nerds now. What's up?
I'm just getting tired. I'm getting tired. Oh, here's one last question. On the note of being tired. One last thing is, I thought it's like people talk about, did you like the film? Do you think this film was good? How do you grade this film? It's hard to compare this film and films of this ilk to, like, this is going to sound like I'm trying to be offensive. I'm not. To like actual films. Because to me, they're very different things, and this comes back to the Scorsese thing.
Yeah.
Like, these are amusement park rides, and that doesn't have to be an insult.
1,000%.
I don't know how you can compare in terms of good or bad Spider-Man No Way Home to, like, The Power of the Dog, like film, cinema that's like a personal, real story. They're different animals. These Marvel films aren't even really films anymore. Like, they're not. And it's not trying to be insulting. It's not trying to be dismissive or say that they're just products. But there's something other than the art of cinema. They're not that. For what it is, Spider-Man No Way Home is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. And you want to stand and cheer, and you see all these videos of audiences in theaters literally doing that. Screaming and cheering, and that's what it is, and it's great at that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's like a good movie. Like, they have to be almost graded on different scales now.
Yeah. You're 1,000% right. Do you know what it is? I feel like I know what it is.
What is it?
Marvel movies are the equivalent of wrestling. They're like these backstories and these storylines. And then here comes The Undertaker, and here comes Macho Man, and here comes, I don't know, any new wrestlers or whatever, but that's just what it is. And you get excited, and there's wins and losses and fights and emotion and aggression and love and sadness and win and defeat. That's what it is.
As compared to real sports? Is that the metaphor here?
No, I mean, maybe that could still work.
Like real sports are like cinema, and wrestling is the MCU?
Wrestling is like MCU, maybe. I wasn't even trying to connect the two, but I just think that's what superhero films are. I think they are just like wrestling, the same kind of vibe, is that you want to stand on your feet and cheer, and you get wrapped up in these storylines. But that's like,
it's not like high art.
Yeah, it's not art.
They cheered.
Yeah. It just hits your emotions. It just gets to some emotions in a different way, but it's not like the elegance of cinema.
I feel like it's a compliment to say they needed to be graded differently. Like, that's how I mean it. It's like, you're just not the same thing. And I don't want to say mean things about a movie like this, which is so fucking huge and amazing and big and impactful. Like, but if I'm going to compare it to like cinema, like again, Power of the Dog or Belfast or The French Dispatch or like any of these like great other films I've seen this year.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't
not that
compare.
good.
No, it's not. No, it doesn't compare.
Because if we're gonna talk about films, we're gonna talk about film criticism. We're gonna talk about these flaws that we dissected earlier in this film. Like, oh well, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, okay, if I'm looking at it from that lens, this movie is stupid.
Yeah. The heart of your story does not make sense.
I think it's amazing. I think it's a great time. So like, different scales.
Correct.
We cracked it. I'm exhausted.